Ever built an email campaign in Dynamics 365 and wondered why engagement just fizzles out? Today, we crack open the playbook on creating customer journeys that actually react to what your users do, not just what you hope they'll do. Let's turn every web visit, form submission, and in app click into a trigger that tailors your marketing live. Ready to see how to architect a responsive marketing machine in D365 step by step? Why linear journeys miss the mark? If you've ever set up a campaign in Dynamics 365 marketing using the ready-made templates, you know how tempting it is to load in your whole audience, fire off 3 carefully crafted emails a week apart, and sit back waiting for results. On paper, it looks clean. Everyone gets the same series, nobody falls through the cracks, and you can track the whole thing with a single report. The reality is it usually ends the same way. Open rates start strong, then nosedive by email too. Engagement tumbles, people stop clicking, and your best leads might bail out before you even know they were interested. It feels efficient, but that spray and pray approach is exactly why most teams never see those big jumps in engagement or ROI. Let's zoom in on what's actually going wrong. Imagine running a campaign for a software launch. You blast the first email to 6,000 contacts, partners, trial users, random webinar signups. The email lines up the new features, invites them to try, and links to a demo. The first morning, it's pretty good news, a 15% open rate, a handful of demo bookings, life is good. But by the time the second email comes out, nearly half your list has ghosted you. A bunch of unsubscribed requests roll in. The third message goes out to a cold, silent crowd. The only people still opening are your regulars, the rest tuned out, and you're left wondering if the campaign missed its mark or if your offer fell flat. There's one story that sticks with me. A B2B firm running Dynamics 365 wanted to re-engage their high-value leads, big logos, long sales cycles, and enough potential revenue to really move the needle. They scheduled a linear 3-step journey: intro email, follow-up email, and a last chance offer. Easy to set up, impossible to personalize. They expected their hot leads would finally reach out after 2 reminders. What actually happened? Those key accounts barely interacted after the first message. When they looked closer, it turned out a couple of big deals clicked the first link, spent time on the site, even poked around new products, but got the same generic nudge as everyone else. Nobody at the company noticed. By the 3rd week, competitors were in their inboxes with custom demos. The team's investment in nurturing? Flat. This isn't just an isolated hiccup. According to research from Litmus, more than 2/3 of brands still run basic one-size-fits-all email sequences, even as customer expectations shift. Marketers love predictability, but audiences don't. People move fast, comparison shop, sign up for trials with different intentions, and bounce between devices 10 times a day. When every contact gets the same treatment, your highest potential buyers fade into the crowd. Dynamics 365 knows all this is happening, recording everything from link clicks and web page visits to product sign-ins, event attendance, and even button hovers if you've turned those features on. The thing is, most teams use all that rich data for little more than, did the person open? If yes, send the next email. It's like driving a car with GPS, traffic reports, and real-time maps, but only glancing at the speedometer. So why does it matter? Adaptive journeys are about responding to real signals, not just marking time. Instead of firing out generic reminders, D365 can flag when someone watches your full demo video but skips the contact form. It can spot a repeat visitor suddenly checking out your pricing page twice in 1 week. The cost of missing these patterns? It's not just a few points of your open rate. It's a lost contract renewal, a high-spending B2B customer who goes cold, or a once-engaged nonprofit that suddenly stops showing interest. The difference between linear and adaptive journeys is the difference between quietly losing business without knowing it and surfacing the signals that say, hey, this contact is ready for something else. Don't treat them like the last 1,000 who already moved on. You can pour money into creative, rewrite your subject lines, or test 10 different sending times, but it won't fix what's fundamentally a journey design issue. Treating every touch as if it's happening in a vacuum means you'll miss when someone is giving you a buying signal or checking out. Static scripts are easier to measure, but they ignore the real-time living nature of your audience. The teams getting better returns from Dynamics 365 aren't necessarily sending more, they're building journeys that move with the customer, not just at them. The mini payoff: once you stop viewing journeys as static scripts and start seeing them as living systems, the engagement curve actually bends upward. High-value leads get that extra demo invite, returning customers see a tailored offer, and even cold contacts get a nudge that actually matches what they did, not just what you hoped they would do. Life journeys turn one-size-fits-all blasts into experiences that match what every user's doing right now. So if journeys are supposed to change with each user's actions, let's get specific. What kinds of real-world inputs can you actually tap into in Dynamics 365 to make these journeys as smart as they sound? Behavioral triggers, from clicks to conversations. Let's get specific about those signals most teams barely notice in Dynamics 365 marketing. You've set up your new campaign and you're feeling pretty confident, but the user's journey often looks nothing like your plan. Picture this. Someone hits your pricing page, spends a solid 5 minutes poking around the tiers, maybe clicks the FAQ but then bounces. No form fill, no trial sign up, just gone. Most systems would sit back and do nothing. That little blip of intent drifts off into the void. 9 times out of 10, there's nobody on your team who'll realize a warm lead just walked out the door. The funny thing is, you don't actually need a dev team or another SaaS tool stapled onto your stack just to track that web visit. Most marketers get stuck at the same spot. We'll know if they open the email, but everything else is a black box. But in Dynamics 365, you're already collecting way more. There are 3 types of behaviors that can and should trigger journeys: what pages users visit, which forms they start or finish, and how they interact with your products or services. Each of these tells a slightly different story. Let's start with website visits. If you've got the D365 Marketing Insights script installed, you're quietly watching every time someone lands on your articles, events, or even that buried pricing page. No custom code, no separate analytics suite needed. D365 will log each hit, so you can actually see more than just a spike in generic traffic. You can spot which contact visited and even how often they came back. That visit can turn into a trigger. The moment somebody from Acme Corp hits the case study page for the 3rd time, you don't have to wait for them to spell out interest in giant capital letters. Instead, you can set up your journey to send a targeted "want a personalized demo?" Invite or flag sales to take a look. Now, forms. Most teams put energy into making their contact or demo form slick, but only count a full submission as a win. Here's where D365's native event tracking earns its keep. It flags not just submissions, but also starts and abandons. This is gold. If someone starts the form but walks away after typing half their info, that's a lead warming up but hesitating, sometimes just for a small question you could have answered. A real example from a SaaS firm. Their trial sign-up had a 40% drop-off halfway through the form. Using D365, they set up a trigger for form started but not completed. The next morning, everyone who abandoned got a personal-looking email from support. Saw you started a trial but didn't finish. Can we help? The response rate jumped. People actually replied to the emails. Several finished the sign-up, all because the journey treated half-finished forms as a chance to re-engage instead of a dead end. Then there's product usage, probably the most ignored goldmine if you're not syncing that data. If your platform's plugged into Dynamics, you know who logged in, which features they tried, and what they skipped. A user who explores reports and analytics modules 5 days in a row should trigger a check-in or a tailored offer about premium reporting. If you're not taking advantage, it means you're leaving money on the table. Even the basics, a simple flag when a user's been active for a week or hasn't logged in since onboarding, are enough to drive retention and upsell campaigns. It sounds straightforward, but plenty of teams muddle these signals. Duplicate triggers happen when your logic double counts. So a single action, like a page reload, results in 3 emails. Or someone configures tracking on only half of the site's pages, leaving big holes in your customer insight. Without tight configuration, you'll miss out on subtle but important patterns, like repeated visits to support articles before a churn or renewal event. While D365 covers most scenarios right out of the box, sometimes you'll hit a limitation, like tracking a button click inside a custom app or a truly bespoke user action. That's where Power Automate comes in. You can send custom events from your app to D365 and use them as triggers for journeys, bridging those gaps the built-in stuff can't fill. But for 90% of use cases, the classic visits, forms, and logins, you can stick with the platform, avoid unnecessary complexity, and keep your campaign logic visible to everyone. The shift is subtle but powerful. You're no longer reacting to broad segments. You're responding to real specific actions users take. Suddenly, your marketing stops feeling like a robotic drip feed and starts to resemble a real conversation, one where each reply makes sense based on what's happening right now. But let's be honest, picking the right inputs is only half the puzzle. The real magic is what happens next, how D365 processes those signals, combines triggers, and actually decides who gets what message at what time. That's where journey logic either shines or totally falls apart. Architecting smart journeys triggers conditions and branches. If you've ever mapped out a journey in D365 and found your contacts stuck in what feels like the wrong conversation, you're definitely not alone. We see it all the time, a simple follow-up that's supposed to fire only if someone actually opens the first email, but somehow half your entire segment gets it regardless. The intention is clear: reward engagement, don't spam everyone. But instead, you're left with folks scratching their heads about why they're getting follow-up prompts for things they never looked at. This sort of confusion usually points back to how the journey logic is wired up behind the scenes. D365 gives you plenty of power under the hood, but that also means there's room for mix-ups. A lot of teams blend up triggers, conditions, and branches, sometimes stringing them together in the wrong order, sometimes missing them entirely. The result is contacts slipping down the wrong branches, getting duplicate touch points, or worse, being treated as if they're all the same again. Despite all that behavioral data the system is tracking, let's try a real-world flow. Imagine this prospect. They see your LinkedIn ad, get curious, and click through to your site. They poke around, check out your about page and a case study, and then leave, but not without being cookied and matched to your marketing database. Your journey is supposed to be smart. Maybe you set it to trigger a nurture stream for anyone who engages with LinkedIn and visits your site, but then you also want a follow-up if they open your next email, except the condition checking email opened is out of order or maybe missing altogether. Sometimes more than one branch fires. This user, who only nibbled at your content, now receives a sales outreach plus a demo offer. Oh, and another generic nurturing touch on top of that. If you've seen contacts get hammered with 3 emails for the price of 1 click, it's usually a wiring issue. What's supposed to happen is pretty structured. The journey should start with a trigger. That's the event that says, let's go. Maybe it's the LinkedIn click, maybe a product page view, or that first email open. Then a condition should check what the contact actually did next. Did they open the follow-up? Did they sign up for the webinar or just ghost you entirely? These conditions are your checkpoints. Only after evaluating those behaviors do you use branches which route the contact down a specific set of actions. One branch might send a lead alert to sales for folks who check out pricing and finish a demo video. Another might move cold leads into a drip campaign with softer educational content. When the logic falls into place, something interesting happens. You don't have to guess what's relevant. Say your map splits high-value prospects, those who've interacted at least 3 times across different channels, directly to a sales task. Your reps get fresh, warm leads with a digital paper trail. Everyone else, the ones window shopping or catching up on blog articles, gets steady nurturing rather than hard sell pitches. You use a single journey but deliver entirely different experiences based on real actions, not hand-waving personas. Channel choice matters too. D365 makes it easy to lean on email, but dropping in-app messages or SMS at the right moments can tip the balance. SMS can stand out if you're reminding attendees about a webinar in an industry where people check their phones every 5 minutes. In-app messaging is gold for SaaS logins. Maybe a new customer has skipped onboarding steps. The next time they sign in, a helpful tip appears. It's targeted, and honestly, it feels less intrusive than an inbox blitz when someone's deep in your platform. Despite all this flexibility, the same mistakes pop up. Duplicate or conflicting messages, like the earlier scenario, happen when the logic inside your branches isn't tight enough. One common pitfall is setting up 2 different conditions that both check for a similar behavior, like visited pricing and clicked email link, but forgetting that a single person might trigger both. D365 will happily deliver both branches unless you add explicit exclusions. Or teams will default to end branch actions for everyone, so the journey gets noisy and people get tired of the constant touches. The upside, though, is obvious when you finally get it right. Now, the journey responds as if there's a real operator behind the curtain. Contacts get routed logically, engagements feel natural, and sales only see genuinely interested leads. One client finally saw their sales tasks drop by half because only the most active leads triggered a handoff, while nurturing content kept everyone else engaged without accidental overlap. The end result isn't just fewer unsubscribes. The pipeline focuses on people who actually want to hear from you in the way that fits their interest. But even with the smoothest wiring in the world, none of this means much if it isn't backed by proof. Journeys can look efficient on a whiteboard, but what you track and measure is where teams learn to fix gaps and show real results. If the system's firing off at the right stages, how can you tell? And what's actually worth tracking if you want to tie it back to ROI? Real-world results, analytics, LinkedIn, and common pitfalls. You've put in the hours, getting all this journey logic lined up in Dynamics 365, triggers, branches, the works. But when it's finally live, the big question hits. Is your journey actually doing what you hoped, or is it just bouncing contacts around in circles? At first glance, the analytics dashboards look packed with answers. Charts go up and down, open rates sit in neat little columns, and you can spot a few spikes when campaigns launch. Here's where most teams pause, maybe nod, and call it a job well done. The reality is, those top-level numbers barely scratch the surface of what's actually happening beneath the hood in your journey. If you stick to opens and clicks, you'll have no idea why half your audience trailed off after the first step, let alone who ended up bombarded by the same message twice. It's surprisingly common. 1 week, support tickets start mentioning duplicate reminders. The marketing team sees a spike in unsubscribes right after a journey update. When no one's tracking the granular journey level signals, those small hiccups spiral. You can watch contacts drop off after step 1, but unless you know why and where they ghosted, you're left guessing at fixes. Journey analytics in D365 can give you a whole lot more than just the old open-click routines. You're able to see exactly where people fall off, which branches don't perform, and whether anyone is getting stuck in a loop. Let's say you've got a 5-step onboarding journey. Steps 1 and 2 keep pace, but by step 3, maybe a webinar invite, you see a big exodus in the analytics. That's your clue. Clicking through, you see most contacts are skipping the webinar or ignoring that email completely. Now it becomes less of a mystery. Maybe the offer was too generic or you're sending too many steps too quickly. That's the signal to switch up the sequence or even skip the invite for folks who never responded to learning content in the first place. This gets even more nuanced with the LinkedIn connector inside D365. On paper, connecting your marketing to LinkedIn sounds like a no-brainer. You get access to paid campaign tracking and can add contacts to journeys the moment they interact with your ad. When it works, the integration feels smooth. You can automatically sync LinkedIn leads to the right journey, nudge them quickly, and track which creative pulls the most engagement. But once campaigns get complex, you start to spot the cracks. For example, tracking isn't seamless for retargeted users who bounce between 2 different LinkedIn campaigns or jump to your site from another referral before ever hitting your journey. Contacts sometimes get enrolled in parallel journeys, leading to the classic "why did I just get 3 very similar emails from the same brand" complaint. One company saw this playing out in real time. They were running 2 LinkedIn ad streams for different products. D365's analytics picked up that dozens of contacts who fit both audience profiles were receiving promotional emails for both launches on the same day, plus a generic monthly newsletter. The data also showed those same contacts had the highest unsubscribe rate. By digging deeper, they found that their journey logic wasn't set to remove a contact from one branch when they joined another. All it took was a change to their branching rules and a quick journey configuration update. The next month, they saw unsubscribes drop and click-throughs went back up. These fixes are possible only when you actually use the full scope of D365's journey analytics. A few core configuration checks make a difference. Double check if your triggers are unique. If one event can enroll a contact in 2 places, tidy up your trigger definitions. Make sure exclusion branches are used so contacts don't double dip in parallel journeys. Also, review your journey's end states so people exit gracefully once their path ends instead of cycling through unnecessary nurture emails. A before and after tells the story best. Before, the onboarding journey relied only on email opens to move users along. Drop-off happened between the welcome and the training invite, but nobody knew why. After adding page visit tracking and measuring engagement with training content, the team rerouted non-engaged users to a simplified one-message check-in instead of pushing them through a hard sell. Engagement rates climbed, complaints dropped off, and for the first time, sales could track actual product signups tied back to a specific journey path. Getting journey analytics and configuration right means you aren't just making guesses at ROI, you're seeing it unfold with every step your users take. You catch the drop-off points, trim the noise, and make every follow-up that much smarter. Soon enough, the dashboards look less like vanity graphs and more like a real playbook for driving results, which raises the real question. If you want smarter automation, what's the main thing separating the teams seeing real ROI from everyone else? If you line up every customer action side by side, you'll see the real difference between a basic journey and one that actually adapts. The smartest teams map each step. Someone clicks, a page bounces or fills half a form, and then change the journey in response. D365 isn't just a scheduler. It can adjust on the fly if you let it. Don't wait for a quarterly overhaul. Make one tweak, use a fresh trigger, and watch as the results shift. That's how you move from generic messaging to real ROI. Got a tough D365 scenario? Drop it in the comments for next time.